Because I deserve it, Dominique said, her voice flat and resolved over the phone after I had asked why she was suing me for 51% of the company we had built together with nothing but an initial $5,000 and our combined desperation to escape corporate life. Because I'm tired of giving you credit. Because I did half the work, and I'm only getting half the money. That doesn't feel fair to me anymore. I was sitting in my apartment in Austin, Texas, holding my phone like it had just turned into a weapon in my hand, and I could feel my entire understanding of friendship and partnership dissolving into something I didn't have a name for. Outside my window, the city was going about its business, people working, living, building lives that probably made more sense than the wreckage of what I thought was the most important partnership of my life. How had a friendship that had survived 16 years, that had been tested and proven and strengthened through everything life had thrown at us, suddenly become something disposable the moment money was involved? My name is Alexandria Martinez, and this is the story of how I learned that betrayal often comes wrapped in the language of fairness, and that sometimes the people closest to us are the ones most willing to rewrite our shared history. I met Dominique at a yoga studio in Austin in 2007. She was standing next to me in Downward Dog, and she had farted so loudly that the entire class heard it. We had both turned bright red. Then we had looked at each other and had started laughing so hard that we had to leave the room. We had gotten coffee afterward, and then we had gotten lunch the next day. And then she had become the kind of friend who you can't imagine your life without. For 16 years, Dominique had been my person. We had gone through everything together. Breakups and career changes and family drama and health scares. She had held my hand when my father died. I had held hers when she got divorced. We had supported each other through every transition, every crisis, every moment of self-doubt. We both worked in corporate marketing. We both made decent money, but felt like we were building someone else's dream instead of our own. We would go to brunch on Sundays, and we would talk about what we really wanted to do. We wanted to create something. We wanted to build a brand that was authentically ours. In 2019, we finally decided to do it. We spent 3 months planning. We researched markets. We identified a gap in the digital marketing space for small businesses. We created a business plan. We both saved our money. And in January 2020, we quit our jobs on the same day. Dominique had $8,000 saved. I had $7,000. Together, we had $15,000. We decided to invest $5,000 into launching the company and keep the rest for emergency fund. We called the company Catalyst Marketing. For the first year, we worked from my garage. We ate ramen noodles and drank cheap coffee, and we worked 16-hour days trying to get clients. Dominique handled the creative side. I handled the business development and operations. We were a perfect team. Our skills complemented each other in a way that felt almost magical. We got our first client in month 3. By month 6, we had 5 clients. By the end of the first year, we had 20 clients, and we were making $50,000 a month in revenue. In year 2, we rented office space. We hired our first employee. We brought in $600,000 in revenue. In year 3, we had a team of 8. We had won several industry awards. Our revenue had reached $1.2 million. We were profitable. We were successful. And then, in March 2023, I received an email from a lawyer named Thomas Hartford representing Dominique. The email stated that Dominique was filing a lawsuit claiming that she was entitled to 51% ownership of Catalyst Marketing, based on the argument that she had been integral to the company's creative direction and therefore deserved majority control. The email included documentation. Every email between us, every text message, every conversation about the company that she had apparently been carefully documenting for 3 years. She had screenshots of messages where I had taken credit for her ideas. She had emails where I had made decisions without consulting her. She had documentation of times when I had made client calls without her input, even though the work was collaborative. None of it was strictly untrue. But all of it was incomplete. All of it was missing context. All of it was a carefully constructed narrative that made me look like a controlling partner who was taking advantage of her contributions. I had called Dominique immediately. "What are you doing?" I had asked. "Why are you suing me?" "I'm not suing you," she had said, and her voice had been so calm it was terrifying. "I'm taking what's mine." "You're taking what's ours," I had said. "We built this together. 50-50. "No," Dominique had said. "We built it together, but I've been getting paid 50-50 for work that deserves more. You handle the business stuff. but I handle the creative work that actually attracts the clients. Without me, this company is nothing. You know that. I know that. So now I'm going to own that fact. I had tried to reason with her. I had tried to remind her of our friendship, of what we had sacrificed together, of how we had been through everything together. That's exactly why I have to do this, she had said. Because you're leveraging our friendship to keep me in a subordinate position. You use our friendship to make me feel like I should be grateful. And I'm done being grateful for half of something I built. I had hired a lawyer immediately. Her name was Patricia Okafor, and she was brilliant. Patricia had reviewed all of Dominique's documentation, and she had identified a critical flaw in her case. Dominique didn't have legal documentation supporting her claim of 51% ownership. When we had started the company, we had created a partnership agreement that stated we were equal partners with 50% ownership each. We had never amended that agreement. Dominique was essentially asking for the court to overturn our existing legal partnership agreement based on the argument that she deserved more because her contributions were more valuable. This is a very weak case, Patricia had told me. What she's actually doing is trying to use emotional manipulation and selective documentation to rewrite your partnership agreement. The good news is that you have the law on your side. The bad news is that she's also a lawyer, and she knows her case is weak, which means she's probably going to try to settle. Dominique had offered a settlement, 47% ownership in exchange for dropping the suit and paying her $200,000 immediately. I had refused. We had gone to court. The case lasted 2 months. Dominique's lawyer had presented all of her documentation, showing the times I had taken credit for her work, made decisions without her input, and positioned myself as the face of the company. My lawyer had presented our original partnership agreement and questioned why, if Dominique had felt so undervalued, she had not amended the agreement or raised concerns earlier. The judge had ruled in my favor. Our partnership agreement was valid. Dominique had no legal claim to additional ownership. But Dominique had also filed a counterclaim about workplace harassment and credit theft, which had dragged the case on for another 6 months. By the time everything was resolved, I had spent $85,000 in legal fees. Dominique had spent approximately the same. The company had been disrupted. Several clients had left because they didn't want to be associated with the drama. Our revenue had dropped by 40%. And most painfully, my best friend of 16 years was no longer speaking to me. 3 months after the case was resolved, Dominique resigned from the company. She sent an email on a Monday morning saying that she was leaving effective immediately. She did not give a reason. She did not ask to discuss it. She simply disappeared from my life. I tried reaching out multiple times. She never responded. What I learned from that experience was something that took me a long time to process. Dominique had spent 3 years harboring resentment. She had documented everything because she was building a case against me, not as a friend, but as a future opponent. She had been waiting for the moment when the company was valuable enough that taking 51% was worth destroying our friendship over. She had rewritten our shared history to justify her actions. In her narrative, she was not the betrayer. She was the woman who had finally stood up for herself against an exploitative partner. The fact that I had never meant to exploit her didn't matter. The fact that I had equally valued her contributions didn't matter. What mattered to her was the story she had constructed about victimhood and entitlement. I rebuilt Catalyst marketing without her. It took 2 years, but we got back to $1 million in revenue. I brought on a new business partner, a woman named Gemma, who I met through a startup networking group. Gemma had a completely different approach to partnership. We discussed expectations up front. We had regular check-ins. We talked about concerns the moment they arose rather than letting them fester. Our partnership has been incredibly healthy. Not because we never disagree, but because we address disagreements immediately and we maintain clear communication about what we both need. I ran into Dominique at a coffee shop about 4 years after everything happened. She was working at a marketing agency as a creative director. She looked happy. She looked like she had moved on. We made brief eye contact. She looked away first. My name is Alexandria Martinez. I am 45 years old. I own Catalyst Marketing with my partner Gemma. I have learned that friendship and business partnerships are not the same thing, and that sometimes people you love can become people who hurt you. What I learned from Dominique is that you cannot force people to recognize your value. You can only recognize it yourself. That betrayal often comes from people who feel secretly resentful, and that resentment festers when not addressed. Most importantly, I learned that the story we tell ourselves about relationships determines how we treat people. Dominique had constructed a narrative in which she was a victim of my exploitation. That narrative justified her actions in her mind. But narrative and truth are not the same thing. I could have constructed my own narrative. I was betrayed by someone I loved. That narrative would have let me stay angry and bitter forever. Instead, I constructed a different narrative. I learned something crucial about business partnerships and human nature from someone I loved. That narrative let me heal.